Hello, and today we got radio presenter and lifelong Hibs fan Grant Stott. How are you doing today, Grant?
I am very good indeed, Angus. Thrilled and honoured to be invited on to be interviewed by you. I've been watching your progress with interest over the last few weeks, and delighted to be on it. Although I can't compete with your collection of Hibs top in the back, unfortunately.
No, it's great having you on, Grant. Thank you. What is your first memory of playing football?
First memory playing football. Anyone who knows me will know my footballing skills are, well, I was often likened to Bambi on ice when I was on a football pitch. I had absolutely zero ability and talent when it came to playing football when I was younger, which was much to the despair and disappointment of my dad, because he was a goalkeeper all his days when he was growing up. So he had high hopes for both of his boys. But no, I didn't get any footballing talent at all. Used to play a little bit, the school playground and things like that. But I never ever. I only got one chance to play at any level, and that was for Gillespie's high school, and that was because the regular goalkeeper was a guy called Derek Bryce, who had got injured or couldn't turn up that weekend or whatever, and there was literally nobody who was available to play in goals for Gillespie's for the game against Liberton High School that Saturday. And a lot of my pals played for the school team, and they said, "Stotty, you're tall, get in goals, help us out, and come along." Of course, I took this is a huge compliment. I thought, at last, this is my calling. This is it. This is me going to be playing football. Got home with my dad, so excited, and he was like, "Well, they're actually going to give you a game." And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "But I've not got any boots." So he took me out and bought me a pair of boots. This was like the Thursday, and hadn't broke them in or anything. And then the Saturday morning, we're up at Liberton High School, and I'm in goals for James Gillespie's. And I'm so proud. I'm just absolutely. This is like all my dreams had come true, and I've got the strip on, I've got the boots on, and I'm kind of like Gregory and Gregory's Girl, holding it between the sticks like that, and I have to say, at the end of that game, Gillespie's came out 7-1 winners against Liberton, and I had one touch of the ball, and it went in, and that was their goal. And I later found out that they had a tactic, a team talk behind my back, unbeknown to me, and the tactics for Gillespie's that day was keep the ball away for Stotty. And that's it. They defended like Trojans. They were just too scared to let me anywhere near the ball. I literally had one touch, and that was pushing it into the back of the net. So no, my footballing days as a player were zero, non-existent. I tried really hard, but no, I'm all legs and all arms with no coordination on a football pitch. So,
Let's
no, not great.
let's move on to Hibs now. What was the first Hibs game you went to?
I can actually vaguely remember it. It was a reserve game against Hearts, and it must have been about 1974, something like that. I was about 7 years of age, and my brother, who was a big football fan, was meant to be getting home so my dad could go to the football. My dad, massive football fan. My dad and my granddad, big football fans, big Hibs fans. And my brother used to always go to the football with my dad, and that was the deal. I never went, wasn't interested, and he never came home from playing. So my dad said to me, he says, "Right, you get your coat on. I'm going to take you out somewhere." My dad never did that. I'm thinking I'm going to see the Towering Inferno at the Pictures, which was a big film back in the day. I should dad. And so I'm in the car all excited, and then noticed that we're driving past where the cinema is, the ABC at Lothian Road. I go, "Dad, where are you going? The picture's that way." He goes, "We're not going to the pictures, son. I'm taking you Easter Road to see the Hibs." And I was absolutely distraught because I didn't want to go to the football. I wanted to go to the pictures. But anyway, that was my first game. It was a reserve match, if I remember correctly, and I think Hibs won, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the score or anything like that. But I wasn't particularly attentive at that time. But I think that was my very first trip to Easter Road. And I just remember running up and down, bored between all the seats and everything like that, while my dad was trying to watch the game. So it wasn't a particularly successful venture, let's just say.
What would you say is the best Hibs kit?
That's really interesting. I think the one there was a number in the sort of late sort of 70s when Hibs first got a sponsorship, and Hibs were the first to get a sponsorship. I think in the UK, if not certainly Scotland, and it was the famous Bukta strip, and Bukta were the first sponsors of any football shirt, and Hibs had that, and it's an iconic shirt. So I would probably say that one really stands out because of its significance and because of its sort of place in football history, if you like. But I'm also a fan of when Hibs were sponsored by Adidas, who I think do really make great shirts and great football strips. And I think it was when they were sponsored by Frank Graham. So when Hibs had Adidas as the sponsors, and the Frank Graham joinery were the sponsors at the time. That one's again, that's quite iconic. So I would probably go for that one.
What about the worst Hibs kit?
The worst Hibs kit. Difficult to say. I mean, I think every Hibs kit is a thing of beauty, so it'd be difficult to say which is the worst one. Really hard to say which one's the worst one.
I mean, it's pretty easy for me to say.
I remember. Oh, you can just pick any one you want. But I think from a I don't know. We went through a phase of having bright yellow away shirts. And I did the voiceover for the advert, and I think the catchphrase was "Get your Hibs away shirt, blink and you'll think it's Brazil." Was the was the tagline, which unfortunately was never really reflected on the pitch. But yeah, the canary yellow away tops that we had for a spell were pretty eye catching for all the wrong reasons, I think.
What would you say has been the best moment supporting Hibs?
Oh, that's probably a bit too easy. It's all down to the day we brought that little thing home. It was, yeah. I mean, and the funny thing was leading up, and obviously every Hibs fan, I think, will see the same day, that day in May in 2016. But it's a funny thing because we had such a torrid relationship with the Scottish Cup. I always had an inner belief, and people who, if they can remember the conversations that we had at match day, might back me up on this. But I always did say it. Says I did believe Hibs were going to win it. My dad, who's now 80, was 76 at the time. Had been to 7 Scottish Cup finals and never seen them win. He was getting to the point going, son, I'm never going to see this. This is never going to happen in my lifetime. And I was going, it will happen, Dad. We will see it. And I says, you know what? I says, when we do it, it is going to be spectacular. And I always believed that it wasn't going to be a straightforward 1-0 beaten against a Kilmarnock or something like that. It was going to be a fascinating historic script to get us there, and it did. You look at the story how we got there and the teams we beat on the way and how close we were to going out on the way to that cup final. So it was the highs and the lows, and to get and for us to get Rangers, and I still believe that part of the reason that we beat Rangers that day was not just because of how things fell into place with regards to the performance from the team, but Rangers themselves, I think, had peaked in that competition in the semi-final. They wanted to beat Celtic more than they wanted to win the Scottish Cup, and for them, beating Celtic in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup was massive for them at that time, given their recent history and all that. So I think they struggled to raise their game in the same way that they did against Celtic. And we were talking about this on the way in, we'd had a particularly good season against Rangers that day. And I remember saying all Hibs needed to do was to play to the best of their ability. We didn't need luck. We didn't need to, or Rangers to underperform or anything like that. We just had to be able to match them in the same way that we had that season. And we had every chance of winning that game, and that is what happened. That's how it panned out. Obviously, we went ahead, then they went ahead, and so the game sort of swung both ways, which made it all the more exciting. And to win it in the dramatic way that we did with David Gray's header in the the 94th minute or whatever it was just stuff of dreams. So yeah, I mean that's probably the easiest question you're ever going to ask me. Angus, and I can absolutely say that was the day for for so many reasons, just to touch on a couple of them there.
Be honest, were you on the pitch?
No. No, I wasn't. I was with my dad, and I was in a state of shock and emotion, and there was tears. And because I was with my dad, and because my dad had had this belief that he was never going to see it, and his dad, my granddad, who died in 1975, lived and died and never saw Hibs win the Scottish Cup. He was born, I think, in 1910, 1911, something like that. And so this was a massive day for my old man. So when all that was going on down the pitch, we were just trying to come to terms with what we had just witnessed and what had just happened. And I've got a couple of photographs on my phone of my dad, who, you know, once the final whistle had gone, and then when everything was beginning to unfold, he sat down in his seat at Hampden, just put his head in his hands, and just took a wee minute to himself to sort of finally let us sink in. And I quickly got the phone, the camera out, and grabbed a couple of photos of him, because that's how much it meant to him and to so many other Hibs fans. I've got a picture of him as well, of some other gentleman of a certain age who I hadn't seen during the game, but for whatever reason appeared beside my dad, and the two of them were just hugging, and it had become clearly, you know, the most significant day in their life, and it was just phenomenal. So no, I had no intentions of running the pitch, and you know, and it was unpleasant, and it didn't need to happen, but it was one of those things that just did. And you know, and I think, and I've said this on the radio before, you know, I think that the police in Glasgow completely underestimated the significance of the game. They completely, or just totally assumed that Rangers were just going to turn up and win the cup, and hadn't thought that, hang on, if Hibs do this could be nuts. You know, this could be like no other ending of any game. So I think, you know, that's why, because the police took ages to get out there. They were sitting out having a cup of tea or something, I don't know. But yeah, so I think they should share a degree of blame as to what went wrong that day.
What about the worst moments for Hibs?
How long have we got on this? How long have we got? It's 10 to 5. I'm on the radio tomorrow at 1:30. There's been a lot of hellish games and times at Hibs. I remember getting, you know, I was at the match in '98, I think, when we got relegated and against Dundee United, and that was sore. That was a low point. But then it was a kind of, you know, we sort of rose from that, and you know, Alex McLeish came in, and we began to rebuild, and then we put together an incredible team, and took care of the first division, and we came back, and you know, we had Latipi, we had Frank Sozzi, we had Mixu Patalainen, we had John O'Neill, we had we had some incredible players for us at that point, which then took us on. So we had to hit rock bottom, and then from that we rose up again, and you know, had the AK Athens game at Easter Road, which was one of my most treasured memories as a Hibs supporter, probably up until the Scottish Cup game, one of my favourite matches. And but you're asking my worst experience. This is what you want to hear, isn't it? Probably often at the hands of your team. My worst footballing times and experiences. Tynecastle, God, yeah, I was there. God, I'm just trying to block them out of my memory. But yeah, Tynecastle had never really been a happy hunting ground for me. And of course the two Hampden experiences were pretty high up on my list of my worst ever days. But they're in the past now, and that's all history.
What's the best stadium you've seen Hibs play at?
The best game.
Stadium, sorry.
The best game. God, stadium, I beg your pardon. The best stadium. Wow. The best stadium I've seen Hibs playing at. I would probably, again, I would say Hampden, because the memory that I now have because of what happened there. And it's although Hampden has its critics, some justifiable, but certainly Hibs at Hampden, and that will be a very special memory. So, yeah, I've not been one for travelling abroad to watch them play. I saw them against Barcelona in Murrayfield, which again was a different kind of atmosphere. But yeah, I would say, yeah, I enjoyed that day at Hampden watching Hibs that day. Apart from Easter Road, of course.
Who's the best Hibs player you've seen play?
Wow. Well, I've just mentioned Frank Sozzi, just mentioned Russell Latipi. John O'Neill was one of my favourites. I loved Kevin McAllister when he played for Hibs. We Crunchy, we got him from Falkirk. What a player he was. He was brilliant. David Murphy, again, a sublime footballer, David Murphy. And what I enjoyed watching with regard when David Murphy was in the team was that every time he got the ball at the back, you would relax. You know, he wasn't a sort of bomb scare. You wouldn't think, oh, God, what's he going to do with the ball? You just felt instantly it's all right, David Murphy's got the ball. And you just knew he was going to provide an inch-perfect pass or clear it or take it on a wee run and get you out of danger. So David Murphy was absolutely one of my favourites. John O'Neill, loved watching John O'Neill, such a brilliant wee player. And as was Ken McAllister. And I just loved that the Mickey Weir. I think there's something about a wee dinky player who can create a bit of magic, and Latipi was another one who did, and even Stefano Mionga to a tiny extent when we saw flashes from him over the last couple of seasons when he was on loan. There's just something about an exciting wee player like that gets you off your seat. Think, what is he going to do next? Because you sometimes think, I don't think he knows what he's going to do next, but whatever it is, it's going to be absolutely magic. And I think that's what I love about football. And when you get wonderful players like that playing in your team that can just turn it on and just do something incredible, is part of the joy of the game for me. And yeah, so if I was to pick one, God, I mean, the strong contender would be, the obvious one would be, like Sozzi, David Gray, I'll love forever for what he did. Darren McGregor, for being such a brilliant servant to the club and an absolutely top bloke as well. But yeah, I would say my long-standing sort of favourite in recent times, the last sort of 20, 30 years, would be sort of three-way tie: Kevin McAllister, David Murphy, and John O'Neill. Can I
Just a
have three?
couple of quick, yeah, fine. Just a couple of quick fire ones to end on. What was the last Hibs game you were at?
The last Hibs game, I think it was a derby before lockdown. It was at Easter Road. Not a particularly enjoyable experience. I was at a table of Hearts fans, actually, if I remember correctly. Me and my dad, and it was footballing aside, it was a terrific night. But yeah, we didn't do it on the pitch that day at all. So yeah, that was my last game. Was that the week? It was a week before lockdown because I was doing a show at the Kings before we went to lockdown. So I think that was a game I missed at Easter Road on the Saturday because I was working. But yeah, the last game was that midweek derby in March.
And just finally to end on, when was the last time you had to pay for a ticket to go to a football match?
Well, I pay for my ticket if I've got a season ticket with my dad. Although I didn't use my season. Oh no, I did use my season ticket that derby day. Although because we're invited to the corporate restaurant, so I had I used my season ticket seat, so somebody else could use the corporate seats that day.
Sure. Right. Thank you, Grant. That ends it. Thank you.
Listen, Angus, I can't believe you've been so gentle with me. I appreciate that. That's the skill of a good interviewer, is making their interviewee feel at ease, and I felt very much at ease. I wasn't quite sure what angle you were going to go for. I wasn't quite sure which questions your dad had written for you, although I've got a sneaky suspicion the last one was part of his doing. Would I be right?
Nope, it's just something to ask everyone.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Thank you.